Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to discuss this topic entitled Globalization and Pluralism, New Challenges in Ethics. In this lesson, we'll deal with the ethical challenges and problems brought about by globalization. And in addition to various theories in ethics discussed in this lesson, we'll also discuss today the another ideology called pluralism, which has arisen in the age of globalization. So, let us start with pluralism. Generally, pluralism is a philosophical theory that there is more than one basic substance or principle, whether it be the constitution of the universe, of the mind and body, the sources of truth, or the basis of morality. Like for example, the assertion that it is wrong to lie, it is wrong to steal, and it is wrong to harm others, combined with the assertion that there is no unifying principle that underlies these views. So now let's move on to moral pluralism. Moral pluralism is the idea that there can be conflicting moral views that are each worthy of respect. There are values that are equally correct and fundamental, yet they conflict with each other. Some of the values are incommensurable and there is no objective ordering of them in terms of importance. It is also a meta-ethical theory rather than a theory of normative ethics or a set of value in itself.
For example, assume a building is on fire. A woman has the opportunity to rush inside and save the children trapped in the burning building. But in doing this, she may die and leave her own child an orphan. A moral pluralist would conclude that there is no definitive way to decide which is the better course of moral action. Indeed, moral pluralism declares that it is sometimes difficult to choose between competing values. So, moral pluralism occupies a sensible middle ground between there is only one right answer, as moral absolutism says, and there is no wrong answer, as moral relativism claims.
Moral pluralists. They advocate flexibility when faced with competing perspectives. They evaluate the issues of various moral standpoints in deciding and taking an action. And knowing that many moral issues are extremely complicated, they propose that no single philosophical approach will always provide all the answer. Against moral pluralism. At first glance, seems to be flawless and attractive. It is definitely not immune to valid criticisms when philosophically analyzed. Moral pluralism fails to stipulate what to do when two or more of its values or theories indicate inconsistent practical imperatives. Moral pluralism leaves us either concluding that there is no real solution to ethical dilemmas or all possible answers are acceptable as long as they have underlying fundamental values. Some also argue that moral pluralists ignore the fact that values are indeed commensurable as they can be compared by their varying contributions toward to the human good, concerning the ends of freedom, equality, efficiency, creativity, and the like. For instance, some claim that none of these are ends in themselves, but are valued for their consequences. So technically, moral pluralists fail to prove that the problem of conflicting values is in principle insoluble. So now let's move on to globalization. It may be defined as the worldwide integration of government policies, culture, social movements, and financial markets through trade and the exchange of ideas. According to the British sociologist Anthony Giddens defines it as intensification of worldwide relationships which link distant localities in such a way that local happenings are shaped by events occurring many miles away and vice versa.
The concept of globalization and the potential benefits aren't hard to understand. By eliminating trade barriers in an honest manner, everyone could theoretically win. 1. Poor countries would receive a significant influx of capital, as international companies take advantage of the lower wages, and in time, this could even lead to a gradual eradication of poverty. 2. Those who live in rich countries can take advantage of greater product variety, as well as better prices thanks to imports. 3. The world would move towards a more efficient allocation of capital, based on whatever it is each country can produce better than others. If a country cannot produce, let's say, clothing in a cost-effective manner, it can simply import clothes and focus on the products it's better at making. Unfortunately, things haven't exactly gone as planned for several reasons. 1. Most countries don't practice what they preach when it comes to being fair. For example, rich countries which encourage poorer countries to sell them resources, but discourage them from selling actual high value-added products. 2. Everyone wants to game the system by artificially weakening their currency to boost exports, subsidizing industries, and so on. 3. Whenever something's wrong with the economy, local politicians and citizens love blaming globalization. It sure beats looking in the mirror. The end result is that more and more people claim globalization doesn't work. However, is what we have today truly globalization or just one big masquerade?
Various interrelated definitions are given for the concept globalization. However, the common theme that runs through the definition is the stress on the transnationalization of the connection taking place in the world today. So author Gail Verberg enumerates some reasons why globalization is not living up what was ideally expected of it, and is in fact our very major problem today. So here are the following summarized version of his online article entitled 12 Reasons Why Globalization is a Huge Problem. The first reason is globalization uses up finite resources more quickly. B. Globalization increases world carbon dioxide emissions. C. Globalization makes it virtually impossible for regulators in the country to foresee the worldwide implications of other actions. D. Globalization acts to increase world oil prices. E. Globalization transfers a consumption of limited oil supply from developed countries to developing countries. F. Globalization transfers jobs from developed countries to less developed countries. G. Globalization transfers investment spending from developed countries to less developed countries. H. With the dollar as the world's reserve currency, globalization leads to huge U.S. balance of trade deficits and other imbalances. I. Globalization sets up a currency race to the bottom with each currency trying to get an export advantage by dropping the value of its currency. K. Globalization encourages dependence on other countries for essential goods and services. L. Globalization ties countries together so that if one country collapses, the collapse is likely to ripple through the system, pulling many other countries with it.
Free market competition. Critics describe globalization as process by progressive capitalist countries to perpetuate their economic and political domination. Globalization and the propagation of the laissez-faire capitalism deepen inequalities within and between nations is ethically condemnable from both consequentialist and deontological standpoints. What is the effect of free market competitions? Basic economic theory demonstrates that when firms have to compete for customers, it leads to lower prices, higher quality goods and services, greater variety, and more innovation. Consequentialist standpoint, it fails to maximize happiness for the greatest number of people. It is an ethical theory that judges whether or not something is nice or what its consequences are. For example, most people would agree that lying is wrong, but if telling a lie would help solve a person's life, consequentialism says that the right thing to do. Deontological standpoint is condemnable on the account the exploited populations are treated as means to an end and not as end in themselves. For example, shooting the intruder to protect your family from danger. From this situation, shooting the intruder is wrong, but protecting your family is right. According to Immanuel Kant, it starts to acknowledging that actions and their outcomes are independent things. Basically, there are things you have to do, even though you know they are wrong, such as shooting. The intruder just protect your family. According to deontology, you need to focus on the act, such as protecting your family, and not likely that it will mean for the intruder. Another problem with globalization is that states are in effect increasingly losing their sovereignty. Ecologically speaking, another moral challenge arising out of globalization is the problem of handling the global environment in there to prevent a global ecological collapse. Industrial capitalism, an essential partner of globalization, is chiefly responsible for the damage of the ozone layer and the escalation of global warming. Human environment system. It is the significant relation between human and their natural environment and other broad implications of definition.
Today's video is about globalization and business ethics. As globalization is largely an economic concept and system, it is rational to have a separate section that deals with the issues and challenges it creates that concern business ethics. Business ethics. It examines moral principles concerning business environment involving issues about corporate practices, policies, business behaviors, and the conducts and relationships of individuals in the organization. Child labor. Top management establish clear policies that encourage ethical behavior as part of companies' strategic business programs and alliances. With involvement of business ethics as part of business strategic decision making, companies are even expected to gain a competitive advantage, goodwill, and recognition in the global business world. They attract a good workforce and cater to healthy organization climate. All these are anticipated to ultimately lead to good profits and healthy competition in the international globalized business world done by all people or things in the world or in a particular group applicable to all cases. Search for universal values. A value is a universal value if it has the same values or worth for all, or at most all people. Evidently, there are a number of moral questions and problems arising from globalization. That is, from global interdependence and interconnection. To address this ethical problem, social scientists and philosophers suggest that the time has come for the world to develop a global ethic. That is, a set of universally accepted principles that could provide the foundation for regulation global interaction.